103 days. 103 days until NFL kickoff. And we have 68 days until the Hall of Fame game, the first preseason game. So we're getting just right around 2 months away. Chargers-Lions playing that game. Do the Lions have someone going in the Hall of Fame? Is it Megatron?
No.
No, he's already in, huh?
Yeah, Barry Sanders.
I know the Chargers do, right? They have Gates going in.
Yeah.
He's going in this year, right?
Yeah, he is.
Gates.
He is.
Yeah.
That's I didn't know they did that. Like maybe they don't like specifically do that, but like I know it's called the Hall of Fame game because they do the inductees. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea. Like, yeah, like have a team who has someone going into the Hall of Fame. Do they? Is that not?
I don't know if they do. I don't know actually. I knew the Chargers had Gates. So
yeah, I don't think they do it on purpose, but
well, they
early.
should.
You know, that's the game's on July 31st, and
it's early.
So teams usually have to be practicing like 10 days before that. So those guys will be. I guess it affected. It affected the Lions. They said we're not having the final mini camp in June. So
yep.
So it goes like OTA 1, 2, and 3, and then then it gets into a final mini camp, and I guess the Lions are not doing that mini camp.
So they can just not do that.
Yeah, it's their schedule. I think the only thing, there's restrictions on how much they can do, but whatever they do within those restrictions is up to them. So I think they're saying, now we want the players to have the right amount of time off or something like that. The coaches too, I guess. I don't know if they coaches take time off. It doesn't seem like they do. I don't know. But that's what the Lions already said a few weeks ago. Like, we're not having a mini camp.
So last year, the Hall of Fame game was the Bears and Texans, and they each had a Hall of Famer go in, Devin Hester and Andre Johnson. So maybe they do try and do that. I don't know.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Oh, we're seeing all the green numbers in the Matrix. We cracked the code.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But yeah. So football's coming. We got some OTA stuff happening. I think a lot of them are happening next week. And so you're gonna get some news, some stuff coming out. Like this guy looks great, amazing, and so it's OTAs of everyone, not just the rookies and rookie mini camp and all that. So we'll get some of that stuff, and then.
Did you hear the Marvin Harrison one?
He bulked up.
Yeah, he's bulked up. It's like,
yeah. I was like, I don't know if that's a good thing. Like,
I guess he had a really lousy. Yards after catch, and I guess maybe contested catches he wasn't so great on or something. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so he was last year. His contested catch percentage was 42.1%, which is not terrible, but usually you want to see it at 50% or higher. And then his yak was 2.4.
2.4 yards.
After catch.
That's terrible. That's the number.
A lot of that's like how they use them too, because usually high ADOT, average depth of target guys, which he was, aren't usually don't have a high yak. So I don't know. So I meant to put this one up. Sorry, this one. Thoughts on the trade that was I offered? He has McLaurin, Stafford, Kamara for Garrett Wilson and Jordan Mason.
Oh, I missed the 4 part. I thought that was the first part of the trade.
Is it Superflex or is it the one QB that because this is two distinguished gentlemen. This is his. We reviewed his team on Thursday, so I assume it's the one we reviewed.
Let's see. I'm pulling up. I actually still had it open.
Getting a little younger in the running back area. Hopefully.
Stafford, Kamara. Yeah, it probably is that league because he does have those 3 players.
Yeah, I remember now all those guys.
Yeah.
The issue is Garrett Wilson. It's like, what is Garrett Wilson? Is he a hammer that we talked about getting? Or is he kind of just like a solid top 20, top 15 guy? I know he finished top 10 last year, but his points per game numbers were closer to like wide receiver 20, which is, it's still useful. It's still a usable piece, but it's not, it's kind of like
it's not the piece.
Yeah, like McLaurin was more of a difference maker last year than Garrett Wilson was. He averaged 1 point more per game, and if you look at McLaurin from week 3 onwards, he was amazing. So
I got a general comment, I guess. So he's looking to improve his team. I mean, that's the bottom line. Can you do that in one trade or something like that? Maybe, maybe not. You're talking. So maybe this is a small step in improving the team. And, I'm just looking at it. Jordan Mason over Kamara, look at age. And so I think it's a slight improvement. So I'll just say that. You'll throw your analytics. You'll throw the water on the fire or something, but
no, it's just like I've always been a huge Garrett Wilson guy, but it's just like, what are we expecting from Garrett Wilson? And again, it's not like, so did he get a quarterback upgrade from a passing standpoint? You can argue no, right? That Rodgers was better, just passer. Could the offense be better and he could score more touchdowns? Yeah. But like, again, who's had more targets than Garrett Wilson over the last 3? He's had 469 targets over the last 3 years. Like, the issue hasn't been targets for him, And I know a lot of people are referencing, well, look at DJ Moore and what he did with Justin Fields. And I just feel like they're different receivers. That's my only worry, is like DJ Moore is kind of one of those, he can, yak guys potentially. Like he had a couple high yak seasons, which Garrett Wilson, talking about yak, he's averaged 4.1 in his career, which is weird. Like, he's great at getting open and he's not great after the catch, essentially, with Garrett Wilson. So it's like, that's how you get 55 targets, 100 catches, 1,100 yards, right? That's how you get like, I feel like it should be more. I feel like it should be 1,300 yards. So I don't know. I guess it's just like, what is Garrett Wilson?
So Go ahead. Sorry, finish your thought.
No,
I was just going to say he does say like the guy rejected the trade anyway. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like I know you kind of mentioned McLaurin when we were doing the team review. It's like, well, he has potential to be, maybe not necessarily top 5, but definitely a top 12 guy. I mean, he just did it last year. I know McLaurin, we've talked about, like he basically had the same year he always has, but he got 13 touchdowns instead of 5. So I get like wanting to trade off of McLaurin, and like this is probably the highest he's going to be valued ever. I don't know how much he really moved, but just based on that year, similarly with, James Cook, very touchdown heavy year. So sometimes that's a good indication of when to trade guys, like, based on the percentage of their points they got from touchdowns, because those aren't sticky, They're not sticky stats compared to like workload and things like that. But I mean, if you really look at Terry McLaurin, he basically had the exact same year he always has, but it was touchdowns that were the difference maker. And that could continue into this year because he obviously has the best quarterback he's ever played with. So
that obviously made a big difference.
Yeah. So here's there are 6 players since 2022 that have had 450 or more targets. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill over the last 3 years. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. And it's like one of those guys is not like the other, right? Like all those guys have been like wide receiver 1, top 3 guys, maybe not Adams over the last 3 years, but even last year, Adams was wide receiver 10 in points per game. He was wide receiver 4 in 2022. So literally all those guys have been like top 5, top 3 in points per game, except Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's best season in points per game is wide receiver 21.
Yeah.
So like,
well, all those guys have actually been the number 1 receiver too, not in that time frame, but right? Like Tyreek and like they've all been overall number 1. There might have been one guy on there.
Amon-Ra hasn't, but he's been 3 overall.
Yeah.
Adams technically hasn't, but he was in 2020.
Oh, really?
But yeah, the other.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because there's too many guys to be number 1 overall.
Yeah.
In the last 3. But I just meant in their careers, like they profile as that. But yeah, St. Brown was did that.
I think it was a fair trade. And I might have. It depends on my team, but I understand why he rejected it because Garrett Wilson's still viewed as like, again, you just go. Most people go and they look at points per total points, and they see Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 10, and that's fair. That's fair to think that, but it's just you got to look at it a little bit beyond just where they finish sometimes. Keep trade cut asada pastor carnitas tacos. Yeah.
Easy. Keep pastor trade asada cut carnitas.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Definitely pastor's number 1 for me.
Yeah.
As long as the little pineapple slice gets on there, pastor's number 1 for me.
I know.
You fruit the meat.
That's kind of how they serve them here. Like it's in Mexico, it's a little bit traditional. To like some pineapple.
So good. It's so good.
Yeah. But yeah, that's. I think I agree with you, Brian. Dad, do you have a preference?
Kind of like carnitas, but
okay. I mean, they're all great.
No, they are like.
Yeah.
Probably carnitas, asada, pastor for me in that order.
Yeah. It's like asking keep trade cut, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ashton Genty. It's like you have to cut one. Doesn't mean we don't like it. So,
Bijan.
Sure. 4 26 firsts for BTJ and a 27 first. 4 26 firsts.
No.
Yeah, I think that's too much. I mean, it could be the right price, but you're basically buying him on the ceiling of a single season, which is, fair enough. Like I know Mike, you really like him from watching him, like you saw it.
Was he marvelous with Lawrence, or did he get marvelous, with Mac Jones or something? I don't know.
It was more. It was more when it was with Mac Jones. I don't know if it was because of Mac Jones. I think it was more because there was really no one else there at that point. Evan Ingram was hurt. Gabe Davis was in and out. Christian Kirk was hurt. So yeah, his last 6 games, he had a ridiculous. He had 70 targets. 70 of his 133 targets came in. Basically, half his production came in 6 games to end the year. Across the board of targets, receptions, yards, touchdowns. So I'll say this, if it's like a super shallow league, like a start 8, I don't mind it because again, like how many of those 26 firsts are actually going to turn out to be anything in terms of like a very shallow league. But if it's even like a 12 team start 9 or 10, I'm probably keeping the 26 first because you are getting a 27 first.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously a 27 first is worth less, right, than a 26 first. So even if you make those equivalent in your head, I mean, depending on how you feel about the classes, but the idea is the later picks are less valuable because, the 26 first has an extra year worth of production built into it, depending on who that player is. But so even if it's 3 first for BTJ, like that might be the price, but I think it's a little too much. Like, I don't know. What do you think is like the most you would ever pay for any one player? Is it 4 first? Like, would you trade 4 first for Jaden Daniels right now in a Superflex league?
I'd think about it. If we're talking shallow leagues, like start 8, start 9, I'm fine with doing that for guys like Chase, Gibbs, Genty, CD. 4 first is a lot, and this isn't technically, like you said, it's not technically 4 first. It's kind of like 3 point something or
3.75 or something.
Yeah, if you take out if
maybe like 3.25.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm willing to do it. But if it's any type of deep league, like we like to, our listener leagues, our 12 teams start 12 and stuff. You want to stock up on, you want to diversify a CD Lamb into 3-4 pieces or something. That's kind of like seemingly the strategy, as long as those pieces hit, of course. Seemingly the strategy that's going to work. So yeah, I'm fine with it. Like, so it depends on my team build and stuff. Like, is Jaden Daniels the last piece to my team? Then I'm fine overpaying for him slightly. The 27 class, like, people are already hyping up. There's 2 incredible receivers coming out, in Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. But again, a lot can change there. So Happy Madison, aren't they making like a Happy Gilmore 2 movie or something?
Yeah,
it's coming out on Netflix.
So Happy Madison 4. So who would that be? Rob Schneider? Would he be like the 4th guy?
I don't know.
The guy from Grandma's Boy, maybe. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's in all those too.
Yeah.
12 teams, start 11 guy.
I was just looking at the Happy Gilmore 2. They have what's her face? Margaret Qualley, who's like one of my favorite. It's kind of like my celebrity crush at the moment. She's in that. She's been getting big over the last 5 years or so. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was one of like the hippie.
Oh yeah,
hippie girls in The Substance. If you've seen that.
Wow, look at this. This is interesting.
Okay,
you guys are talking movies, and I'm reading.
Sorry, 12 teams start 11. Cool. Guy was desperate for a young stud tight end. I grabbed Loveland as a faller at the 203, traded him for a 26 and 27 first and Arroyo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's more. He immediately knew he overpaid. So I offered Dak in 226 and 227 seconds with his 26-27 first back for Burrow and Chase Brown. Wait, what? So wait, you ended up getting... Oh, wait, you offered him Dak 226 seconds, 227 seconds, and his 26 and 27 first back for Burrow and Chase Brown.
Yeah.
So what did you
so basically he traded Loveland
for Burrow
and a couple of seconds and Dak for Burrow and Chase Brown, right?
For Burrow and Chase Brown.
And Arroyo.
And Arroyo.
Oh, yeah, and Arroyo.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Brock Bauer. I think you're right there. I liked that first trade was ridiculous. Yeah. I think I would have just been like, sorry, dude. We'll figure something else out, but so
just sorry I fleeced you or you fleeced yourself.
Yeah.
Well, just all right, so forget how he got the first, right? So just look at the second trade, like in a vacuum, I guess. Like, so Dak 2 seconds and 2 first for Burrow and Chase Brown. It's like, yeah, that's probably not far off because Dak and the 2 first for Burrow. It's like, yeah, that's probably pretty close. Like maybe Dak, one of the first and the 2 seconds for Burrow is closer, and then the other first for Chase Brown. Like, yeah.
I think it's close. Yeah, I think it's close. I don't think it's like a smash win necessarily. Just because I believe Dak, I wouldn't be shocked. I would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked if Dak had a better year than Burrow.
Yeah, he definitely has it in his wheelhouse. Dak is super undervalued right now.
Yeah. I know that sounds crazy, but it's always tough with these non-rushing quarterbacks because you could just have a year where Chase Brown, and I know he has Brown, So it's a little bad example because he'd be benefiting from that. But it's like, oh yeah, Chase Brown had like 17 touchdowns, and that kept Burrow, that left Burrow around 32 or something like that, like something crazy in that sense. So you see it all the time. I mean, Justin Herbert a couple of years ago when he came off his second year, he was like a second-round pick in redraft, and he was a disappointment because he only threw for 25 touchdowns.
Yeah, and the age
CJ
gap
Stroud was last year.
Not as big as I thought either. I mean, I'm just looking on Sleeper, so I don't know when these guys changed. Like maybe Burrow just turned 28 and Dak's going to be 32 like tomorrow.
Dak's going to be 32 in 2 months. So before the season. So he'll be 32 this year. Burrow will be basically 28. He turns 29 in December.
Okay, so close to a 4-year gap, to call it 3.5. Mm-hmm. So that's not that big of a gap for quarterbacks, So
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Not a smash. Like, I think I still like that side. You should have just stuck with the first one. Yeah, that was definitely a smash. Like, but I don't mind it.
That being said, though, like Burrow has way more other perceived value than Dak because it's like he's considered one of the best quarterbacks. He's younger. He's on the Jamar Chase and Higgins, and he's handsome, and he looks like Macaulay Culkin, like all this stuff, and he has good nicknames. Yeah. So Joe Shiesty, Joe
Cool.
No, that's not one of his. It's Joe Brr is how you say it. Joe Shiesty and Joey Franchise. I haven't heard that one. So I haven't heard Joe Cool either.
Who's Joe?
He's making he's kind of making the Bengals go out of their swim lane and spend money on good players, man.
Wait a second.
Joe Cool would be Joe Montana. That's always the Joe Cool I heard.
Well, he's gone, but in the Wikipedia page for Joe Cool, who's apparently Snoopy with sunglasses, I guess I kind of forgot that. I wasn't a big Peanuts guy, but it literally says Joe Burrow, like on the Joe Cool Wikipedia page.
I just
go Pro Football Reference.
I thought the little bird Woodstock was involved with the Joe Cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
Snoopy.
You would remember because there was only 2 channels back then.
And you can only get one of them at a time.
Depends on which way the wind blew.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always just go Pro Football Reference and what they list. So Texans offense. Marvin says Texans offense looks like it's going to explode this year. Tennessee is a great cast of wide receivers as well. 3 rookies in particular, Restrepo, Io Manor. What do you guys think of the AFC South Jaguars? Yeah, AFC South's kind of tough. I think it's the Texans. I'm still a little bit worried about their offensive line, to be honest, and that was the big issue with them. Last year was their offensive line, and they got rid of a couple guys. And
yeah, they made some big wholesale changes. They got rid of some big names. One of the guards, Shaq Mason, was you're out of there. Laramie Tunsil, which was considered one of the better left tackles in pro football, you're gone. And, it's like them and the Bears seems like they've had the biggest offensive line turnover, I guess. So that's what I think. But Tennessee, I don't know if you call it a great cast of wide receivers.
It's a bunch of guys for opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's they just signed Tyler Lockett a couple of weeks ago, which is, okay. So Ridley, Lockett, I'm missing somebody.
Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
So actually, this is a perfect. I always talk about perceived value and why it matters in Dynasty more than it should. He didn't list Chimere Dike, who was drafted before Io Manor in the 4th round. He listed Xavier Restrepo, and I'm not saying anything against like Marvin here. He listed Restrepo, who's an undrafted free agent, but left out Chimere Dike. Why? Well, because no one saw any mock drafts with Dike was in them unless you did a 7-round mock draft. You always did 3-round mock drafts. Restrepo would sneak in there, especially early on in the
yeah, that's right.
And so, like, he has more value than DK. It's crazy. It's crazy to say that, but he does.
Wasn't it Cam Ward who said, "I want a Restrepo"?
Maybe. So, like, that's my whole point, though. Is like you can tell a story about Restrepo. Is like, oh, he was like maybe he fell further than he should. You're reuniting him with his college quarterback, so he just has more value than someone who was drafted in the early 4th round. It's kind of crazy to think that, but it's true.
It's kind of funny. The influence goes to people like us who pay attention, to mock drafts and all the other stuff. And then when it happens and when something happens differently in real life, you go, maybe I need to pay attention to this or something,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Richardson puts it together that the Colts are the best team in that division. So it's really up in the air.
Division. I'll still go Texans.
By the way, Happy Madison said he'll take the Grandma's Boy actor as
I looked him up.
Happy Madison.
Alan Covert. Right, is that right? I was just looking at it. Alan Covert is the guy's name. He doesn't like being why am I blanking on his name now? Rob Schneider.
Oh, yeah.
Which I get it. He's kind of a goofy looking guy.
Rob Schneider, is he the one? You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Water Boy.
Yeah.
He has to be up there as like one of like the most famous like side character. I don't know. I know he's like starred in some movies and stuff, but I always think of him as just like a, what's the right word for it? I can't even think of it like a side character or a B. I don't want to say B.
Supporting actor.
Supporting actor, yeah. Like, I don't know. I always think of him like that.
That
Rob Schneider?
I do. I know he's like starred in some movies and stuff, but
yeah,
I think of him that way.
Fucking terrible.
Yeah.
That movie sucks.
Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo.
Oh yeah.
The Animal.
Yeah.
Cameo.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing
about
stupid.
Speaking of like side guys, he doesn't get a lot. Is what's his name? Steve Buscemi.
Buscemi. Yeah, he's another one.
Yeah.
But they're called character actors, I think.
Yeah, well, he's pretty damn good,
Con Air, one of the greatest movies ever made.
Con Air, yeah.
Come on, Fargo.
Right up there with Rambo.
He got stuffed into a wood chipper in Fargo.
Yeah, that's when I think I spent about 10, 15 years watching bits and pieces of that movie, Fargo. And then when I finally did watch it in one sitting, I was like, wow, this is a great-ass movie.
Yeah, the Coen brothers make good movies in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is character actor. I thought he died, Steve Buscemi, but it was his spouse. So sorry about that. But
you can get
okay, Brian. You wanted to talk about a topic here. We got about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes or so. So you can bring up your topic that you wanted to talk about after.
I want to hear some more trades that people are doing. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
Keep them coming.
I know it's kind of an interesting part of the season, right? As far as like a lot of rookie drafts are done. We're kind of just waiting. We're waiting for that news. So I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit, and we've kind of touched on this a few times, even like over this last week. But like the idea of, let's say you just did a startup draft, which we just did a couple of them. This is why I'm like, it's fresh on my mind. And like, how do you value your team after the startup draft, like, and everyone else's team for that? Like, do you actually? So this is kind of in the concept of like trading, right? Like people are making trades and everything, and it's like, okay, like how? I mean, Dad, you should be able to answer this pretty well too, because you just made some trades in the rookie draft. But yeah, so do you look at individual teams, especially if you're going to trade with them? I think it's more obvious then, but do you look at individual teams as like, oh, this guy's a contender, this one's not? Is everyone a contender? Do you like, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I was going to tell you in my point, we went into that rookie draft. So I drafted my initial team and I went an older team, so, it's like, yeah, I don't, that was my thought process. I think I had 3 draft picks, 1 in the second round and 2 in the third round. I thought, well, I'll just take whoever's there, and we'll work it. And then I think, I was offered trades, and I thought, yeah, okay, maybe I get the team, a little younger, get it more blended or something like that, between. And I didn't think I was trading away. I was trading away some decent depth, like Joe Mixon, and I traded away Garrett Wilson too. But that's more than decent depth. But it was kind of unexpected for me, and I ended up turning 3 draft picks into 7. So it just it was a complete accident. But then I thought, well, I blended my team, and then I had a little remorse the next day, like, oh, what did I trade? What did I do this for? And I thought, well, I'm just gonna
sweat.
Huh?
Did you wake up in a cold sweat in the middle
No,
of the night?
I was thinking because the team is deep, and you don't realize that. I know Mike said, had said it numerous times. You don't realize it until you go look at your depth chart and you go, and God, I got to start this clown or something like that, So that's where I got slightly nervous, I guess. So if a couple of my rookies hit, if 3 out of 7 do something, I'm shitting in tall cotton. So, but
yeah, it's kind of funny because I don't know if you guys do this in like redraft, because like obviously we draft way more of those teams. Well, maybe not anymore. I don't know, but like when we were drafting our actual startups, you got to start 12 guys, and so everyone you pick in the first 12 rounds essentially is a starter. But then it's like, oh, well, if I took a second quarter or a third quarterback, rather, it's like, well, that guy's not a starter. So now you're looking at round 13. It just kind of pushes the needle. And I don't draft that way, like to fill my roster. I just draft who I think I should. I think I used to do that. I think a lot of people do that still, where they're
does that mean like, okay, I got an open tight end spot, I need to start looking at tight ends?
Yeah, it's okay to start looking, but some people will be like, well, I need to get a tight end because I have, 3 receivers and 2 running backs and a quarterback, and it's like, well, not necessarily. Like, you need bench guys too. So maybe the tight end isn't the right move at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is all like very, conceptual, but I think people know what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mike? Is everyone a contender? The reason I ask is, because this is like my 7th and 8th Dynasty league. And I felt pretty good about my picks in my other startups. And that didn't always work out, like you never know how it's going to play out. Like, it's hard to like imagine an entire league being like what it's going to play out like. It's just like an impossible exercise, and so you kind of need to like really start the season, at least get a month, 6 weeks in. Obviously injuries are going to play into that and everything, but it's like I drafted 4 startups last year. One of them I got first, one of them I got last, and like I didn't do anything that differently, And the other 2 are kind of in the middle. And I mean, it kind of gets into when you show us like the power rankings on like Dynasty Daddy or something like that. Like, you've mentioned it a few times. You're like, well, this is a relatively young league, and you can kind of see that reflected in the values because it's like a flat line. It's not like there's like the number one guy is usually like way better than the other guy or the ending guy. It's like kind of flat. So is that how you look at it?
I'd say so. I'd say when it comes to startups, I don't. I know it's tempting to draft people, and this is just human nature with Dynasty. But we are, when I say 103 days from the NFL season start, you don't have to set a lineup for 103 more days, right? And so, like, because it's Dynasty, your lineup can change a lot over the next 3.5 months essentially. And so, yeah, I try to never draft to fill a lineup in the startup and stuff like that, knowing that things could change. But yeah, I would say that I kind of view as everyone thinking they're going to compete this year. And I feel the same way about my own teams in a startup. Like, yeah, I'm going to try and compete. I think there was only one team where like people just like that I did a startup last year. People were not valuing quarterbacks. And so I did kind of a quarterback horde, and they were sending me like picks, first round picks for players that I didn't think were worth for first round picks and stuff. That was kind of like the only league I think I did a startup where I knew I wasn't going to compete that year. But yeah, I think everyone feels that way. But I do think, because when it comes to trading, I think thinking that way can be a little bit dangerous. I think just because you trade away a player that could produce for you doesn't necessarily mean you're mailing it in for that year, because like those picks that you're getting in return can turn into something better than that player. Maybe not right at the moment, but like, so like if I trade for a future 26 second or something, that 26 second could be more valuable to it probably is. It is going to be more valuable in October, in November, right? When I'm trying to trade it to someone who maybe is now feeling like they're out of it, they're going to be more likely to trade away a piece in which they wouldn't have back in May for a second. I just think of a name that comes to your mind or something like, I don't know who for sure, but just like anyone that they say, no, like I'm competing, I'm not going to trade away Joe Mixon for a second round pick now, but in October when I'm out of it, I might do that, So like, just because you're trading away players doesn't mean that are starting for you or whatever. It doesn't mean you can't compete. So I'll kind of just always take the value. Like if someone is, I think this whole thing came up with like the whole Jordan Mason stuff, right? And like what is he worth and what is his value and stuff. But like honestly, if like someone offered me 2 seconds for Jordan Mason, even if I thought I was competing, I know that's not what you got exactly, but if someone offered me 2 seconds, I'd probably just take it.
Yeah. So yeah. So I guess like the next part of this is, because I view it that way, definitely. Mm-hmm. Like I view it as like everyone's a contender right here, right now, for the most part. Like some teams are obviously like on paper they look better than others, but we all just drafted essentially like had like more or less like a flat, like an even playing field. That's what I'm trying to say. And so I'm just thinking about like trade philosophy in general. Like, I mean, you kind of spoke on that a little bit, but and I don't know if everyone views it this way, but like the closer you get to being a competitor, obviously, like right before, let's say there's a trade deadline, in week 12 or right before the playoffs or whatever in your league, your picks should be less valuable to you because they can't score you points, right? Like that's like a pretty simple concept. Not everyone looks at it that way, but like there's like a value. There's like a value assigned to this pick that changes over time, right? Like the 26 picks are only going to get more and more valuable, like as we go along in general. But depending on where your team's at, you shouldn't necessarily be worried about trading your picks for players that are going to help you win, right? So yeah, I don't know if you guys think about it that way. where it's like your picks are, they essentially they have a value change throughout the year. Dad, have you ever thought about that?
Not to that level. I personally, I guess I try to simplify things as much as possible, which, seems to help, I guess. I don't know, but and it seems like just about every year I'm able to get somebody to make a difference in my team in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but a few years ago it was when Joe Burrow got hurt and I got Jake Browning, and that helped. But yeah,
I don't know if you remember this specific part of that. So Jake Browning was obviously, like, he came in and he played well enough in that game where Burrow left, I think. And it was kind of like, well, you're going to need to fill that hole. You didn't even have Joe Burrow, but
no, I didn't. But I had a shitty quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah. And you actually traded me, like, I asked for like a 3rd round pick, like 2 years. It wasn't even the next year for 3rd round pick. It was like, give me your 3rd in 2 years.
I think.
Yeah. So for Fab, so you could have more than everybody.
Yeah.
And so you're guaranteed him.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's
So,
why I don't like spending the Fab, and I like to hold on to it, and it's done me well a few years in a row, just holding on to it and wait and see what happens, and it could take a month or two, but it's definitely helped me in a couple of different situations.
Yeah, for sure. And you did end up winning that league.
I did. Year. Yeah.
So obviously hindsight, all that stuff, but yeah. So I think another thing people should kind of consider, like, this is just part of like simple trade philosophy, like if you're trading away picks, for starters, like whoever those guys may be, like if you're going for it now, the reason why your picks should be considered less valuable, this is obviously like, 5 months from now, this makes way more sense, and maybe we'll address it again, but it's like your picks are, in a perfect world, the last pick in that round, right? Like where you win it all, right? And so another reason why, like, you should kind of think about that, like if you're like, oh, this guy isn't worth that pick necessarily, like it's easy to say like, oh, this person's not worth a 1st, but it's also like, is he worth a 2nd? Are we talking about the 112? Are we talking about the 201? Like we talk about that a lot, Mike. Like, it's like, what's the actual difference between some of these like picks, And obviously, it's always hard to know exactly. But anyways,
yeah, you won't really know until, like, me personally this year, there wasn't a huge difference between the 108 and the 202. I had a huge giant tier for those guys, but that doesn't necessarily mean every year it's going to be like that, So, and probably I think last year was also like that too, so very similar to that. But yeah, I'm always just like, I always just have the mindset of like, no one's off limits on my team, and if I feel like I'm getting a deal, I'm going to take it. I forget exactly what the trade was last year, but in our home league where I traded away Mixon after the first couple of games when he was going off, and I ended up getting a 1st, and I don't know what else was involved with that trade. It might have just been that, but that 1st turned into whatever it turned into, the 109 or something like that.
I think you traded extra players, or like, also. It wasn't a bad trade. I can tell you what it was if you give me a minute while you guys talk about this next one.
Yeah, that's fine.
The good old trade log.
I don't like trading into the future either. That's me.
Yeah, but again, just because you're acquiring a 26 pick doesn't mean that pick can't help you in 2025. A 2027 pick can't help you in 2025. I think that's just a big mistake that we make as dynasty managers, and we lose out on a lot of potential value. Like I kind of just look at everything in a vacuum. Maybe I'm, especially when it's like September or something. Maybe
So you're talking about using it as another flip asset trade asset for
it's
something.
not like
exactly.
The value doesn't go to zero for this year, is what Mike's saying.
Yeah,
and players are going to be cheaper sometimes when it's November, because like a team that's saying like, oh crap, I'm going to be last in this league. I'm holding on to Alvin Kamara. I can't get a first for him. Okay, here, give me a couple seconds or something like, and you get that done. So
yeah,
I think go
ahead.
No, I was saying whenever you're getting value for a player, I'm just almost always going to take it, except maybe I want a slightly more if I'm like really, trading away a top asset on a contending team or something.
Yeah. I mean, I have, you never know how your league mates are going to, until you've been in the league with them for multiple seasons. You're never really going to know. And it never hurts to ask because, you never know if they're going to say yes or no, and the worst they can say is no. And you're in the exact same situation you're in right now. But, yeah, no, I mean, I think I talked about this trade recently, but like I was on a losing team and, going into the playoffs, like not me going into the playoffs, but, basically trade deadline. I'm like, okay, let me move some older players because who knows, and it was the Davante Adams thing. The guy needed a quarterback as well. So I was throwing Joe Flacco in there because he basically, I was assuming, oh yeah, he's not going to be worth anything outside of like, I think what I was offering the guy was like, I'll just give you Flacco for a second if you want. Mm-hmm. And he was not really into that. He was kind of like, you don't want, like he was trying to give me a third. And I was like, well, any starting quarterback is worth at least a second, like depending on who it is. And I was like, and he was like, well, yeah, but Flacco's going to play, 5 more games and then he's going to be worth nothing. So you might as well get something for him. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. But a third's not moving the needle for me either, and it's like, you're the one who really needs the player. Like, I don't really need the pick, So I basically ended up packaging Flacco with Adams to get his first, but it was kind of funny because like I was like, and this is like a 12 team start 12, and I was like, how is Davante Adams not worth a first to you? Like it was like as a contender, and the guy ended up winning the league partially because of Adams, so maybe that'll change like his mind. But he's also like, I can't trade. Like he had the mindset, I can't trade a first for a 31-year-old receiver kind of a thing. It's like, well, dude, you're at the deadline. You need a player. It's a deep league, so depth is, how is Davante Adams not a starter? And obviously he was great down the stretch, so it worked out for that guy. But
yeah,
it's funny because like he actually was like, well, like the counter was, well, give me your fourth. I want to feel like I'm not losing my ass in this trade. And I was like, yeah, fine, you can have my fourth because I'm not going to let a 4th round pick stop a trade from going through. Yeah. And it was kind of funny because Joe Flacco ended up getting benched the next week anyway. So it essentially turned into Adams for a first and a 1 and a 4th.
So I think another way to do this, and so people aren't as worried, because I know a lot of people's feelings. Oh, I don't want to trade away a starter for a future pick because I want to compete this year. Well, get another player thrown in, like get a tear down. That's why tear downs are probably the best thing to do. Trade Joe Mixon for a first and Rico Dowdle, and then you have a starter plus that first and stuff like that. So, always explore those type of trades and try to take a shot on a guy where it's like, oh, I think this guy's kind of undervalued. I can see him doing something this year. And so like, that's kind of really how you win trades the most. So we do only have about 10 minutes. I want to get to some of these. I know if you need to take off, Brian, you can, but By the way, me trading Mixon and getting that first ultimately got me Ashton Genty. So you just never know.
Part of it. It was so I actually have the trade here. You traded Andy Dalton when he was the starter for Carolina, who you got off of waivers. Mm-hmm. So Dalton, Mixon, and Njoku for the first, and that turned into the 108.
And then I've been traded basically 3 first-round picks to move up and get Genty. So who knows if I could have gotten Genty if I didn't have that 108. So
that wasn't last year, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was last year.
Dalton only started 1 game last year.
Really? I
thought he started a couple more than that.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Maybe it was 2. Then he got injured.
He started 5.
He hurt himself.
5 games
in a car accident.
Holy shit. Yeah.
And he was good. But James, to answer your question, I do think people don't want to hear it. And again, this is another thing we do as a Dynasty community is like we try to will things into happening of like, oh, this guy's going to get replaced. I see the Najee Omarion split very similar to what like Javonte and Melvin Gordon were for the Broncos in 2020. I think both of them get 215, 220 carries if they're both healthy. Maybe Omarion's better with that, but I see Najee as having 12 to 15 carries a game. So, and that's going to be 220 to 250 for the season. I see the Chargers running the ball like 500 times. So they're both going to be good.
I do too. They want to smash people.
This is what people do. Say, oh yeah, this is going to happen because we think it's going to happen, right? Like, and we try to will it into existence. And it's just
talk yourself into it, which is very easy.
Yeah. Marvin says he regrets trading away Sutton and Ridley for the 205 and Bateman in a 14-man. Yeah, it's tough. Sutton for the 207 and a 12 team is a steal. Yeah, I mean, you're always gonna if you're making a bunch of trades, you're always gonna have ones you miss, but
sure,
you're gonna have ones that you hit on for sure.
If you're not losing a trade at some point, that means you're just not making any. Hindsight's always 20/20. But yeah, Sutton's one of those players that people just don't value him. I think we talked about that last time, but I couldn't get I tried getting before the trade deadline the last 2 years in a PPR league, tried getting a second for Sutton from contenders, and they were like, no, absolutely not. The last 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand it for like he had 4 years of like he wasn't that good, and then 2023 he had a bunch of touchdowns. And then last year he was really good. So
yeah, but I mean, it's literally like the 210 or something. Kind of like if you need a start, like if you're, I don't know, context is important, obviously, but they were starting some scrubs for sure, and it's like,
and again, like Sutton wasn't.
Scrubs.
Sutton wasn't that good in 20. I know he had 10 touchdowns, but he was not even a wide receiver 3 in points per game.
Yeah, it made more sense then, but he was in a good stretch for sure. He was like, he would get a touchdown every week, and obviously that's not sticky, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of these guys, you'd hope 1 or 2 of these guys hit. I mean, if that's Caleb Johnson, you definitely hope. But between 2 hidden marks, Khalil Mullins, Krosky Merritt, LeQuint or LeQuint, I'm not sure which one it is. Traded away Kraft in the 307 for the projected 201 and 301. Drafted Ferguson. I think that's a good trade to get Kraft for those in a 14 team. Even
how can you project a 2026? I guess the team sucks.
Yeah, just saying the team sucks.
Okay.
Terribly.
It's no fun.
Allen and Herbert are my oldest. Chase, St. Brown, BTJ. Would there be life where I ever rebuild, or am I? Yeah, I mean, you're looking good for a while here, for sure. If you have all those young players.
Yeah.
6 years. I don't know. Just try to restock. Every year. Try to and somebody could hit.
Well, he's saying he's super young and he's looking good for the next 6 years. Of course, you can't predict it, but
keep
adding to it. Trade away Ayuk and Ridley for Olave and a 28 second, or should I aim higher than Olave?
Ayuk and Ridley for Olave, 26 second. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough. Olave, I guess we don't know the situation for any of these guys specifically. Like Ayuk, is he going to start? Like, is he going to be hurt? You know, like, I don't know.
He had a multiple ligament injury, I think, in his knee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's playing in September, it'd be kind of different, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and he could start slow too. Ridley, obviously, big question mark at quarterback. Well, you know, we don't know what Cam Ward's going to be like there. So we can think we know. And then obviously, like, who's the Saints quarterback? Like Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, Aaron Rodgers, you know. So lots of questions there for all those guys. So do you think the Ayuk for Olave is pretty even, like close enough?
I would take Olave.
Yeah, I was like, I prefer Olave, but it's probably not that far off.
No, it's not. I'm just not really excited about. I'm actually probably most excited about Ridley for 2025.
Yeah,
Ridley out of these guys, to be honest, unless Ayuk's healthy and playing. So
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. So I mean, and it's a 28 second. That's pretty far in advance. Like that's 3 years away, 3 drafts away.
Yeah, so, for sure.
I think I'd just keep Ayuk and Ridley, honestly.
I probably would too. And then favorite draft position, last one here. If it's a third round reversal, I really like the end of the draft because there's just a lot of quarterbacks in the same tier, a giant bucket of guys, in my opinion, from basically from Jordan Love to Dak, which is like QB 12 to 23. So I feel like I can start and get like CeeDee Lamb and Jahmyr Gibbs or something, or Genty and Gibbs or whatever it is, and then get a quarterback in the third round. And I feel like my team's pretty strong there. So in a non-third round reversal, I want a top 4-5 pick. So do you guys have a favorite draft position in your startup?
I don't know. It kind of changes. But yeah, I don't mind the idea of the later pick with third round reversal. I've only done 3 of those really, but I've only done 2 this year, and I didn't have a late pick, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we are going to take off. Next time we will go live. It won't be probably till Thursday next week. So, there'll be videos coming out. Make sure to watch them. Some deep Dynasty stash videos. Appreciate everyone for stopping in, and we'll see you guys all very soon.